I thought I had found the one. Amanda and I had been together for 3 years, and our wedding was just 6 months away. We had already put down deposits on the venue, sent out save the dates to family and friends, and started looking at honeymoon destinations. Everything felt perfect, like my life was finally falling into place. But then I started noticing small things. The way she would angle her phone away from me when texting. How she suddenly needed more alone time. I brushed it off, told myself I was being paranoid. I wish I had trusted my gut. What I was about to discover would not only destroy my engagement, but turn my entire family against me in the most brutal way imaginable. Before I get into what happened, I would love to know where you are watching from. If this story resonates with you or you have been through something similar, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you will want to hear how this all plays out. I came home early from work on a Thursday afternoon. My construction crew had finished our project ahead of schedule, so my boss let us knock off around 2 in the afternoon. I felt good thinking maybe Amanda and I could grab an early dinner or catch a movie. I walked into our apartment expecting to find it empty since Amanda usually worked until 5. Instead, I found her sitting on our couch, looking like she had seen a ghost. Her face was pale, her hands were shaking, and she was staring down at something in her lap. It took me a second to register what she was holding. A pregnancy test. And it was positive. My first reaction was confusion, then this wave of pure joy crashed over me. I know we had not planned to have kids before the wedding, but life happens right. I dropped my work bag and rushed over to her, already talking about how we could move the wedding up, how we would need to turn the spare bedroom into a nursery, rattling off baby names I had always liked. I was excited, genuinely, stupidly excited. But Amanda was not smiling. She was crying, and these were not happy tears. They were the kind of tears that come from somewhere deep and dark. I stopped talking and really looked at her, and that is when the fear crept in. Something was very, very wrong. She looked up at me with red, swollen eyes and said the words that would shatter everything. "The baby is not yours. I need you to understand something." When someone tells you something like that, your body reacts before your mind can catch up. The room started spinning. My knees went weak. I had to sit down on the coffee table because I thought I might actually pass out. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to tell me it was some kind of sick joke. But she just kept crying. The questions came tumbling out. How, when, with who? Amanda wiped her face and started talking, and every word felt like a knife. She told me she had reconnected with her ex-boyfriend Jason 3 months ago. They had run into each other at a coffee shop downtown, and she thought it would be harmless to sit and talk, get some closure on how their relationship had ended years ago. One coffee turned into regular meetings. Then those meetings turned into something else. It was not just once. It happened multiple times over the course of 2 months. She had been sleeping with him while coming home to me, while planning our wedding with me, while I was working 10-hour days to save up for our future together. She said she found out she was pregnant 2 weeks ago and had been trying to figure out what to do ever since. I could not process it. My brain felt like it was short-circuiting. I asked her how she could hide this from me, how she could look me in the eye every single day and lie. Amanda got defensive, then saying it was a mistake, that she still loved me, that Jason meant nothing. She actually had the nerve to say she wanted to work through this, to keep the engagement going like nothing had happened. I asked the obvious question. What about the baby? Her answer made my blood run cold. She wanted me to raise it as my own. She said Jason was unstable, not father material, that he could not provide the kind of life she wanted. She had already told Jason about the pregnancy, and apparently he wanted nothing to do with it. So her plan was for me to just step in play dad to another man's child and pretend everything was fine. I told her she was insane. There was no way, absolutely no way, I was going to raise the child of the man she cheated on me with. I told her the engagement was off, that we were done, that she needed to pack her things and get out of my apartment. That is when Amanda changed. The tears stopped. Her face went cold. She stood up, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You will regret this." Then she walked into our bedroom and started throwing her clothes into a suitcase. She was gone within an hour, and I sat on that couch in complete silence, trying to understand how my entire life had just collapsed in the span of 30 minutes. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail from a law firm I had never heard of. I opened it expecting maybe something related to our wedding venue deposits, but it was so much worse. Amanda had hired a lawyer and was establishing paternity. But here is the twist. The letter included a document requesting that I sign an acknowledgement of paternity, making me legally responsible for child support once the baby was born. I read it 3 times because I could not believe what I was seeing. Her argument was that we were engaged, living together, and that I had assumed a parental role by staying in the relationship after learning about the pregnancy. Never mind that I had immediately ended things. Never mind that the baby was not biologically mine. She was trying to trap me legally. I called a lawyer that same day. He told me not to sign anything and to document every interaction with Amanda from that point forward. As we talked, something clicked in my mind. I went back to our shared laptop, the one Amanda had used before she moved out, and I checked the browser history. What I found made me physically sick. She had been researching paternity laws for weeks, specifically something called paternity by estoppel, where a man can be held financially responsible for a child, even if he is not the biological father, if he acted as a parent figure. She had been planning this. The whole thing was calculated. She was going to marry me, establish me as the legal father through our relationship and marriage, then divorce me and take my money. I was never a partner to her. I was a paycheck. I knew I needed to tell my family what had happened before Amanda got to them first. I called my parents and asked if I could come over for dinner that weekend. I wanted to sit them down and explain everything in person. But before I could even make it to that dinner, my mother called me. Her voice was ice cold. She said, "How could you do this to Amanda?" I was confused. I asked her what she was talking about. My mother's voice cracked, and I could tell she was crying. She told me that Amanda had already been to their house. She had shown up sobbing, telling them that I had been cheating on her for months, that I had gotten another woman pregnant, that when Amanda confronted me about it, I kicked her out of the apartment and called off the wedding to be with this other woman. I tried to explain. I told my mother that Amanda was the one who cheated, that the baby was her ex-boyfriend's, that she was trying to scam me into paying child support. But my mother cut me off. She said Amanda had proof, text messages, photos, things I apparently sent to this other woman. I realized in that moment that Amanda had not just lied. She had fabricated evidence. She had created fake text messages, maybe even used photos from my phone and manipulated them. She had built an entire false narrative and sold it to my family before I even had a chance to defend myself. My mother told me my father wanted to see me in person. The way she said it made my stomach drop. I drove to my parents' house that evening, my hands shaking on the steering wheel the entire way. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw my father standing on the front porch. His arms were crossed. His face was red, and I knew this was going to be bad. I got out of the car and tried to speak. "Dad, she is lying. She is the one who cheated. The baby is her ex-boyfriend's. I have proof." He did not let me finish. He said, "I raised you better than this. To lie to my face. To treat a woman like that." I pulled out my phone to show him the lawyer's letter, the text messages where Amanda admitted to the affair. But before I could even unlock my phone, my father slapped it out of my hand. It hit the concrete driveway, and the screen shattered into a spider web of cracks. Then he shoved me. Hard. I stumbled backward and hit the doorframe of my car. He grabbed me by the collar of my shirt, pulled me close, and said, "You are no son of mine." I could see my mother standing in the doorway crying. My younger sister Sarah was behind her, her hand over her mouth in shock. My father pulled his fist back and punched me in the face. I felt my nose crack, tasted blood in my mouth. I did not fight back. I was too stunned. This was my father. The man who taught me how to ride a bike, who came to every single one of my baseball games growing up. And he was hitting me. He let go of my collar, and I fell against the car. He said, "Get out. You are not welcome in this family anymore. Get out of my sight." I stumbled to the driver's side door. My sister Sarah ran out of the house yelling, "Dad, stop, let him explain," but my father turned on her and told her to get back inside. Now. I drove away with blood running down my face, my shirt stained red, my left eye already swelling shut. I could barely see the road through my tears. Over the next week, I tried everything to reach my family. I called my parents over and over. Every call went straight to voicemail. I sent text messages explaining what really happened. None of them were read. I tried to visit the house again, but no one answered the door, even though I could see my mother's car in the driveway. I emailed my mother copies of the legal documents, the lawyer's letter, screenshots of Amanda's confession texts. I sent her the browser history showing Amanda's research into paternity fraud. I laid out every piece of evidence I had. She never responded. My sister Sarah sent me one text message. It said, "Dad said, if we talk to you, we are out of the family too. I am sorry. I love you." Then nothing. I found out through a mutual friend that Amanda had been playing the victim to everyone. My aunts, my uncles, my cousins, they all believed her story. Within 2 weeks, my entire extended family had blocked me on social media. People I had known my whole life, people who had watched me grow up, wanted nothing to do with me. The only person who stood by me was my best friend Tyler. He was supposed to be my best man at the wedding. Tyler had known Amanda and me as a couple, and he told me he had noticed her acting strange in the months before everything blew up. He believed me when no one else would. I went through the next few months like I was underwater. Everything felt distant and muffled. I would go to work at the construction site, operate on autopilot through my shifts, then come home to my empty apartment and sit in the dark. I lost 15 pounds because I could barely force myself to eat. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face, heard my mother's cold voice, felt the punch that broke my nose. I had lost my fiancée, my family, and my sense of who I even was, all in the span of a few weeks. And the worst part was knowing that I had done nothing wrong. I was the victim, but I was being treated like the villain. 3 months went by. Long, heavy months where I had to force myself to keep going. I started seeing a therapist because I knew if I did not, I was going to completely fall apart. She helped me work through the trauma, helped me understand that I could not control what other people believed, that all I could do was focus on my own truth and healing. I threw myself into work. I took extra shifts, volunteered for the harder projects, anything to keep my mind occupied. My boss noticed and eventually promoted me to supervisor. It was not much, but it gave me something to hold on to, some sense that my life was moving forward, even when it felt like everything else had stopped. Tyler checked on me constantly. He would show up at my apartment with pizza, force me to get out of the house, remind me that I was not alone, even when it felt like I was. I do not know if I would have made it through without him. One afternoon, Tyler called me with news. He had run into Amanda at the grocery store. She was very visibly pregnant now, about 6 months along. But here is the interesting part. She was not alone. She was with Jason, her ex, and they were not just running into each other or having an awkward conversation. They were shopping together, laughing, acting like a couple. Tyler said it was obvious they were together. He even managed to take a photo from a distance without them noticing. When Tyler showed me that photo, something shifted inside me. Amanda and Jason were back together. Maybe they had never really broken up. Maybe this whole thing had been planned from the start. I did not know the full truth yet, but I knew I needed to find out. I hired a private investigator. It cost me a chunk of my savings, but I did not care. I needed answers. Within 2 weeks, the investigator came back with a full report. Amanda and Jason had been in a relationship the entire time. They were living together in Jason's apartment across town. The investigator had photos, time-stamped evidence of them coming and going together, acting like a happy couple expecting a baby. But it got worse. The investigator dug into Amanda's past and found something that made my blood boil. This was not the first time she had done this. 4 years ago, she had pulled a similar scheme with a previous boyfriend. She got pregnant, convinced the guy the baby was his, and he paid child support for 2 years before getting a DNA test that proved the child was not biologically his. By then, she had already gotten what she wanted and moved on. My lawyer compiled everything into one comprehensive file. We were ready to file charges for fraud and extortion. But before we could move forward, something unexpected happened. My sister Sarah showed up at my apartment one evening. I opened the door and barely recognized her. She looked exhausted, like she had not slept in days. She pushed past me into the apartment and immediately started talking. She told me she had been doing her own investigation. She never fully believed Amanda's story. Something about it did not sit right with her. So she created a fake social media account and followed Amanda. She saw posts about the baby, saw photos of Amanda and Jason together, saw them talking about their future as a family. Sarah had taken all of this evidence and confronted our parents. At first, they were defensive. They did not want to admit they had been wrong, that they had believed Amanda over their own son. But Sarah would not let it go. She kept pushing, kept showing them more evidence. She found Amanda's real social media accounts, the ones she had not shown our parents, where she and Jason were openly together. Finally, our mother broke down and started looking into it herself. She found the posts Sarah had shown her. She saw the truth, and she realized what they had done to me. 2 days later, my parents showed up at my door. It was late, almost 10 at night. I opened the door and saw my father standing there. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 months. His shoulders were slumped, his face was gray, and his eyes were red. My mother was next to him, already crying before she even opened her mouth. I let them in, but I stayed guarded. I stood near the door with my arms crossed while they sat on my couch. The same couch where Amanda had told me about the pregnancy. Everything felt like it was coming full circle in the worst way. My father spoke first. His voice cracked when he said, "I am so sorry. I should have listened to you. I should have believed you." He explained how convincing Amanda had been, how she had shown them fabricated text messages, how she had cried and begged them to help her, how she had played the role of the devastated victim so perfectly that they never questioned her story. He admitted they got so caught up in protecting her that they never stopped to consider I might be telling the truth. My mother was sobbing. She said, "We failed you. We believed a stranger over our own son. We are your parents. We were supposed to protect you, and instead we abandoned you when you needed us most." They told me about everything they had discovered. Not just about Amanda and Jason being together, but about her history of paternity fraud. My mother had even reached out to the previous boyfriend Amanda had scammed, and he confirmed the whole story. He told my mother that he had tried to warn people about Amanda before, but no one believed him because she was so good at playing the victim. My father tried to apologize for hitting me. He said there was no excuse for what he did, that he should have controlled his anger, that he would regret it for the rest of his life. He said he understood if I never forgave him. I stood there listening to all of this, and I felt numb. Part of me wanted to yell at them to make them understand how much they had hurt me. Part of me wanted to slam the door in their faces and tell them it was too late. But another part of me just felt tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of carrying all this pain. I told them the truth. I said, "You did not just believe her over me. You attacked me. You cut me out of your lives without even giving me a chance to defend myself. You abandoned me when I was at my lowest point. That is not something you can just apologize away." My father nodded. He said he understood. He said they would do whatever it took to make this right, that they would wait as long as I needed. My mother asked if there was any chance we could rebuild our relationship. I told them I did not know, that I needed time to process everything, that trust once broken is not easily repaired. They left that night, and I sat in my apartment in silence for a long time. Part of me felt relieved that the truth was finally out, but another part of me knew that things would never be the same between us. There was a crack now, a permanent mark on our relationship that could not be erased. My lawyer moved forward with the case against Amanda. The evidence was overwhelming. She was charged with attempted fraud and extortion. Her lawyer tried to argue that it was all a misunderstanding, that Amanda had just been confused and emotional. But the paper trail was too clear. The browser history, the legal documents, the pattern of behavior from her past. It all painted a picture of calculated manipulation. Amanda ended up taking a plea deal to avoid going to trial. She had to pay all my legal fees, and the restraining order I had filed against her was made permanent. Jason faced no charges because there was not enough evidence to prove he was actively involved in the scheme, but their names were now part of public record. Anyone who searched for them online would find the case details. When I got the notification that everything was finalized, I felt this massive weight lift off my shoulders. It was not about revenge. It was about validation. About knowing that I had been right all along, and now there was legal proof of it. 6 months after my parents apologized, I was in a very different place. I had been seeing my therapist every week, working through the layers of trauma from both Amanda's betrayal and my family's abandonment. It was slow progress, but it was progress. My relationship with my family was rebuilding, but it was different now. We had Sunday dinners once a month. The conversations were sometimes awkward, like we were all walking on eggshells around each other. My father had completed an anger management course. He was trying, genuinely trying, and I could see the effort. But there were moments when I would look at him and remember the feeling of his fist connecting with my face, and I had to look away. My mother was overly apologetic. Every time I saw her, she would find some way to say she was sorry again. I eventually had to tell her that constantly apologizing was not helping either of us heal. She needed to forgive herself, and I needed space to process everything without the weight of her guilt added to it. My sister Sarah had become my biggest supporter. We talked on the phone multiple times a week. She had risked her own relationship with our parents to find the truth, and I would never forget that. We were closer now than we had ever been before. I still had trust issues. That was something my therapist and I were actively working on. The idea of dating again felt impossible. Every time I thought about it, I remembered how convincing Amanda had been, how completely I had been fooled. If I could not see through her lies, how could I trust my judgment with anyone else? So I focused on myself. I was back to my normal weight, eating regularly, sleeping through the night most of the time. I had gotten a promotion at work and was now supervising my own construction crew. The guys respected me, and I found satisfaction in building things and seeing tangible results from hard work. I bought a small house on the outskirts of town. The apartment had too many bad memories. I needed a fresh start, a space that was entirely mine. Tyler helped me move in, and we spent a whole weekend painting walls and assembling furniture. It felt good to have a project, something positive to focus on. I picked up old hobbies that I had let fall by the wayside. I started fishing again, spending early Saturday mornings at the lake with just my thoughts and the sound of water. I worked on my truck, the old Ford I had bought in high school and had been meaning to restore for years. These simple, quiet activities grounded me in a way nothing else could. I was learning to enjoy my own company. For so long I had defined myself by my relationships: son, fiancé, brother, friend. But Amanda and my family had stripped away those labels, and I had to figure out who I was underneath all of that. It turned out I was someone who could survive betrayal, someone who could stand up for himself even when it meant losing everything, someone who did not need validation from others to know his own truth. The lesson I learned through all of this was not really about romantic relationships or family dynamics. It was about self-worth, about understanding that people will believe what they want to believe, and sometimes there is nothing you can do to change their minds. Even people who are supposed to love you unconditionally can fail you in spectacular ways. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can let it destroy you, or you can stand firm in your truth and keep moving forward. I could have signed Amanda's papers. I could have avoided all the drama, all the pain, all the loss. But I would have been living a lie, and that lie would have eaten me alive. I could have kept begging my family to believe me, could have spent months trying to prove myself to them. But at some point, I had to accept their choice and focus on my own healing. The hardest lesson was about forgiveness. I had forgiven my family, at least in the sense that I was no longer consumed by anger toward them. But forgiveness did not mean forgetting. It did not mean our relationship went back to the way it was before. There was a crack now, a permanent fracture that had healed but left a scar. And that was okay. Some things cannot be fully mended, and accepting that is its own form of peace. I thought a lot about what my therapist told me in one of our early sessions. She said that surviving trauma is not about going back to who you were before. That person does not exist anymore. It is about figuring out who you are now with all the scars and wisdom and strength you have gained. It is about building a new version of yourself that is informed by the past, but not defined by it. These days I sleep well at night. Not because everything is perfect, or because all my relationships are healed. I sleep well because I know I did the right thing. I stood up for myself when it would have been easier to cave. I held on to my truth even when everyone around me was telling me I was wrong. And that is worth more than any relationship, any family approval, any peace that comes from living a lie. I still do not know if I will ever be ready to date again. Maybe someday. But right now, I am okay with being on my own. I have learned that being alone and being lonely are two very different things. I am building a life that I am proud of, one that is honest and grounded in who I really am. And honestly, that is enough for me. So if you have ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, If you have ever had people turn against you because they believed a lie, I want you to know something. Your truth matters even if no one else sees it. Standing up for yourself matters even if it costs you everything. And surviving, really surviving, and coming out the other side stronger, that is the ultimate victory. Not revenge, not vindication. Just the quiet knowledge that you made it through and you did not compromise who you are in the process. I am curious about your thoughts on all this. Have you ever been in a situation where people believed someone else over you? How did you handle it? Drop your answers in the comments below. If this story resonated with you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope that wherever you are in your own journey, you find the strength to stand in your truth. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember that your peace of mind is worth fighting for.